Hi, this is Barrett Ristroff from Fairbanks, Alaska, and you're watching an excerpt from Climate Change Adaptation Strategies for and by Alaska Native Villages. Please check out my YouTube page for more video clips on this topic. In this video clip, I'm going to talk about community relocation. This is such a difficult topic. There are no easy answers. One thing a community may want to do is start a conversation to brainstorm all options that would be acceptable and feasible for the community, with an understanding of how relocations have occurred in the past.
Is there any desire to relocate along with neighboring villages and share infrastructure?
Is there a way to move to land already owned by a corporation willing to work with the village? This could be a gradual move like Nulato in the early 1980s, or a quick move like Nuiqsut in 1973. Allakaket is also gradually moving to higher ground that they got incorporated into their city after the 1994 flood.
Can community members move any of the houses on their own? Can community members take the lead in building houses?
Is there willingness to move people first and get infrastructure later, like Nuiqsut? In that case, the state is required to supply a school at the new site if there are enough children. Kevin Illingworth from UAF suggested,
Local people are better able to identify all options instead of all or nothing. There will not be a one-size-fits-all solution.
Once a community agrees on what it wants to do, the next step is to put it into action. A community may be able to get a university to help with site selection, soil assessment, archaeological clearance, and surveying. Ideally, infrastructure at the new site can be more appropriate for the environment than much of the current infrastructure we have throughout Alaska. The Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, or ANTHC, and Cold Climate Housing Research Center have designed models of Arctic infrastructure that could hopefully be put to use. It would be good to have small systems designed to serve single homes instead of big infrastructure that's hard to maintain, let alone move. An example is the Village of Kiana's work on composting toilets. Shaktoolik's 2016 Strategic Management Plan actually calls for an ordinance requiring new community infrastructure to be movable. Most communities, even if they completely relocate, will need a way to get back to the old site located on the water and near subsistence areas. Ideally, this can be planned in advance. Planning for some sort of access can be useful even if a community is staying put. An example can be found in Kaktovik's 2014 Comprehensive Plan. It included an action item to coordinate with the Air Force to seek public easements or ownership of land for an access road along the coast for subsistence activities. Consider the potential for land trades along the access corridor and whether it makes sense to build an actual road. An example is Alatna. After the 1994 flood that led to relocation, Alatna got hazard mitigation funding for a road from the new site to the river to ensure access to subsistence and to facilities in Allakaket, including Allakaket's airport. Under current law, if relocation takes place through a FEMA buyout, no permanent structures are allowed to remain at the old site. The old site could still be used for subsistence or culture camp. If relocation takes place without FEMA, outside of a disaster, it may be easier to maintain dual residence for some period of time. Announcing plans to relocate can reduce investment in the current location. This leads to worry about how people are going to maintain health and safety until a new site is developed. Nuiqsut avoided this by undertaking a very quick relocation and putting up with no amenities at the new site for some time. A community that does not want to take this approach may need to figure out how to do something like a site expansion instead of a relocation. Building a road between the two sites may be something to consider. It's also important to consider what the community needs to have at either site to make it livable, and where they want to put their funding and efforts. A federal agency native liaison offered this advice.
If a village wants to relocate, there is a need for the village or tribe to establish a threshold as to when to stop funding infrastructure in the current site and when to start funding infrastructure at the new site. Once that decision is made, the only work that should be done at the old site is the minimum needed to maintain the health and safety of its people. The community leadership should look for opportunities to trade land for higher or safer ground and build better, sustainable, weather-resistant, and energy-efficient homes and infrastructure. An example is from Crooked Creek, where the nonprofit Samaritan's Purse worked with the state of Alaska and Cold Climate Housing Research and the citizens to build new houses after a devastating flood that were very fuel efficient. They thought it through before they rebuilt. They didn't just rebuild using outdated building practices and materials that do not meet the need of the families.
Thanks to my musicians and participants, and thank you for watching. I hope you'll watch more of these video clips or check out my Google Drive for written strategies.